I wanted to ask the city manager if he could do, related to the Trade Winds project, and I know it's not an agenda item, if he could give us about a 3-minute update on the process. And really for those who are watching, I think there's been a lot of discussion on how this process, what actually will happen. It's, the meeting was scheduled, it got canceled, but why did the city cancel the meeting? I've got some questions, I should say. And then, people are asking, how are you going to vote? And quite speaking personally, until I got the letter in the mail last Thursday, I had no idea what they were planning to do, quite frankly. So if I could ask the city manager, just, and I know this is like asking you to take a fire hose and give us a couple of drips, but how will this process take? What happens? When does it come to commission? All those good things.
It actually doesn't necessarily have to. That's
Well,
Yeah.
Go ahead.
so here is what. Let's start from the meeting. The meeting that the developer is scheduling is a meeting that is pursuant to a city code requirement. Okay, and as I read, the requirement is very clearly the intent of the writers of that requirement, that the developer basically has to present this project to the community before they present the project to the city. And the intent is so the developer has the opportunity to vet as many of the issues and concerns that the community has prior to submitting a formal application to the city. So is unusual, but I think it's a very good process. So normally when you hear a developer talking about a project, you would have normally, been meeting with the developer, having this issue being vetted with you guys. And that's what some of the residents are asking, well, how are you going to vote? Because they already assume that you've already been, meeting with the developer and reviewing the project, which is absolutely not the way our process is intended to work. So the meeting is pursuant to a code requirement, but it's not our meeting. It very clearly says that it's the developer to organize, present the information to the public. There is no specific agenda that they got to present this X, Y, and Z. It is just to present their project. There are requirements in the code for notices. There are requirements for newspaper notices and requirements for a 1 mile radius that they get a mail notice out.
Those our codes? They're not.
Those are city requirements.
They're not state codes, right?
No, those are city requirements for this. The meeting was supposed to be happening on the 25th, and the mail notice was supposed to be going out on May 9. Somebody within their organization decided to mail the notices on May 10th, which I called them up and said, listen, we really don't want to be in a situation where we're going to have to be arguing as to whether we counted the days correctly, because it says a minimum of 15 days, so you can mail it 16 days before, 17 days before, but don't cut it that close. And they decided that they've been waiting to present this project for a very long time, and having a month delay will not really be significant to the project, and just start things right from the get-go. So there's no other than some administrative thing that happened in the organization as to why this got delayed. After the presentation to the public, the developer has two options. One says, we got enough support for what it is here, and then we can move and start with the city process, or they can go back to the drawing board and change whatever they feel that they need to change. So from that day, the minimum amount, I would say, for them to prepare the package to the city is at least a month. If they do more major changes, it could be more than that, right? But it could be that. There are requirements in the code that says that if you are going to exceed, and I gotta choose my words very carefully, there's some density requirements that they're entitled to. And there's some density requirements that are entitled to do without a conditional use approval. So there are two different thresholds, okay? So they can do up to 75 units per acre as a last resort, but in order to go, let me look at my notes, about 30 units per acre, they need a conditional use approval. So they're all within the comp plan, they're all within the code, but there's a threshold level in which they don't need a conditional use approval. There's a level above which they do need conditional approval. Same thing with what happens with height. They can go up to 116 feet in total, but if they go over 50, they need a conditional use approval. So when we get the actual final package, we'll know whether they need a conditional use approval for height, they need a conditional use approval for the additional units. A conditional use approval is a process that gets set up in your code to make sure that all of the infrastructure and all of the needs of the community are addressed in their plan. So it's not that they're asking for a variance, they're not asking for an amendment to the plan where you have a lot of discretion on the approval or denial. You have discretion on saying, are they meeting the performance standards of what the city has in order to grant that conditional use approval, and it gives the commission the latitude to impose requirements, and you have dealt with other projects in which you have imposed additional things that you feel are needed to protect the quality of life of the residents. The other piece to that is that, and we don't have the submittal yet, but a project of this magnitude typically is a project that is going to go on for 10, 15 years of construction. And if that is the case, developers typically will be asking for what's called a development agreement. And the development agreement basically freezes the approvals and regulatory components as of the date of that the commission approves it. A development agreement under your code requires that there's a hearing with the planning board, and there is a final hearing with the city commission. Okay, so more to come on that, but I will professionally, my professional opinion is I would expect that they will be asking for a development agreement. So if the meeting happens in July, right, is the community meeting, August, September is when they will be submitting something to staff. Then if staff has what's called a TRC meeting, which basically is the professional, different teams or departments will be reviewing the proposal and begin the negotiations with them on the development agreement. That negotiation basically happens between the city attorney, city manager, and the developer and the legal team. The earliest that I can see something coming in front of the commission is probably like November or December of this year, and that means that they'll be coming first to the planning board, and then the following month they'll be coming to the city commission. So it is the very beginning of the process. I will strongly encourage all those residents that have been writing, attend the meeting, and let them know really what are you looking for as a solution, as a problem that you're seeing with the developer. I was very impressed about the professionalism of this young gentleman who came in today, and he had a map, and he had a plan, and he had a solution, and everything else. I mean, and that's wonderful that if you can be that specific about, okay, this is what I see as a problem, fix it. Right? So I was very happy that he already has a plan, and that might get modified, but that's a very good start on discussion. Did I cover?
Yes.
I think so, yes, thank you.
Okay.
Well-
Yeah.
And it was more than 3 minutes, I'm sorry, but.
No, I think it's important because there's a lot of discussion. Obviously, it's a big project, people are interested, and it's important people understand how this process works. And it's not, just a week-long exercise, and we're voting next week.
Yes.
We're not.
Well, and the thing is,
We're not.
I think the biggest thing is that what sounds good at the microphone, as always, is that when they say they're doing 650 units, well, is that 650 new units, not taking consideration what's currently on the ground? Or is that taking consideration what's on the ground and what has been knocked down? So I think that there's just a lot of questions out there, and I'm really excited that the community will be able to do that. I think there's a little bit of jumping in the gun, thinking any of us even know this information because it hasn't come to the city yet. And, because they're going through the proper processes that we have in place. And so doing the community meeting, we're all going to be learning at the same time what their goals. They know what our comprehensive plan calls for. They know that you can't build anything taller than what's already on the ground, no matter what, even with a conditional use. So there are certain things that are in play that I think it will appease the community that are concerned. And so I'm glad you asked that to be talked about, because it doesn't mean that it's, we don't even know what it says. But I know that, I know what it's not, because we don't have the kind of density pool. That's not even like an option, so I know what it's not. And so anyway, but I don't think that the rest of the community may not know what it isn't.
And one of the things, too, I would like to mention is that having met and talked with the owners several times, they want to be good community partners. They don't want to come rolling in there and do something we don't want. So there's going to be a lot of give and take.
And one thing that I forgot, which is really, really important for the community to know, the code is very clear that this board doesn't have the authority to grant any variances on height, density, or intensity. So they got what they got, and there is no process that can happen outside of what they got to get their development done.
Amen.
Thank you for that.